Hello. So welcome to Best Life Abroad, not your average travel podcast, your go-to resource for all the things related to your move abroad. So I am your host, Dr. Raquel. And in today's episode, we are going to be discussing important things that you need to know when selecting the right country for you to move to if you're considering a move abroad. So again, this is all the things for choosing the location that will be the best fit for you. Okay, so we touched on some things last episode, but this is just specifically dedicated to that. So whether you're dreaming of a new adventure, whether you're looking for new job opportunities, whether you're like, I'm kind of done with work, so I'm going to take this good sabbatical of my choosing. If you just want to change up scenery, if you are deciding whether or not you want to go somewhere else, you just want a short little stint somewhere, choosing the right destination, the right location, the right country can really be the deal breaker. It can make all of the difference in your experience living abroad. So today we're going to explore some of the things that you need to be considering. We will talk about some popular destinations that people are talking to me about, some of the benefits of those places, some of the highlights, some different resources as you're researching your potential destination. So all the things, that is what we will be chatting about today. I just got back from the beautiful Dominican Republic. I love the Dominican for so many reasons. It is truly one of my happy places. I truly was living my whole best life in the Dominican Republic. It was amazing. And even though the Dominican is one of my favorite places, I know that I cannot, and I do repeat, cannot relocate to La República Dominicana. Okay? It is a beautiful country. It has such delicious, tasty, wonderful, amazing food. And I am definitely a foodie. The beaches are exquisite. But when I am in the Dominican, it is as if someone poured a bucket of water on my head 24 hours a day. That is how badly I'm sweating. But this is what I go to the Dominican for. I know that I will get all of the warmth and the heat that I need to last me for the rest of the year when I'm in the Dominican. But I also know I can only take this in weekly increments. Okay. So I can go to the Dominican for 1, 2, 3 weeks, get all the sun, the rays, the relaxation that I can handle. And then I can keep it pushing and move on to my next destination. Now I know this, I cannot live my life sweating. And mind you, all the Dominicans walking around have khakis, long sleeve button-up shirts, full outfits on, and they are not sweating in the least of all bits. Mind you, me in this little spaghetti strap dress, I am sweating profusely. All that to say, these are things that you need to consider when you are considering moving abroad. It might be awesome. You might be like, yes, I love this. But can you deal with this 365 days a year? These are the questions that you need to be asking yourself. You don't want to go somewhere and endure, okay? You want to go somewhere and live your best. That means be comfortable. That means setting yourself up for success. So these are some of the things that you need to be thinking about in order to get you there, okay? It can be overwhelming. There are lots of different countries. There are more cities within those countries. So there are many different options to choose from. Also, many people have opinions. A lot of these people have opinions who have never moved abroad. And so again, things for you to consider, but it is just important that you really take careful consideration. I have personally lived in countries where I was like, this is not for me. And then you find a new one and you move somewhere else. And I've also been living in countries where I'm like, ooh, this is my jam. Every single day I walk out of my house and I'm happy that I am there. I'm feeling like this is where my soul is thriving. I have also had that experience. And so different countries will give you different things. So you really need to figure out what is the best fit for you. One of the first things you want to think about is job opportunities. Okay. And I just talked to my financial advisor, who was like, can you please tell the people to stop trying to move abroad broke? For my financial advisor, I will tell y'all, please stop trying to move abroad broke. Okay. We don't want to wing it abroad. Now, it is possible that you do not have to move abroad with a job if you have savings, if you are going again for a sabbatical, if you are, maybe you're a professional and you're like, I do not want to do this professional life for the next 3 years. I want to live a life where I do not have to think once I get home. And so I want to try something different. That is also possible. It is also possible for you to find a job where you are working remotely from the United States, for example, getting that good U.S. paycheck and living very below your U.S. cost of living in another country. So then you are able to pay off debt even faster than you might have been able to had you stayed in the U.S. So there are lots of different things for you to consider, but you really want to think about, what are you going to do to pay for your life abroad? It does cost money to live abroad. It might not cost as much, or it might even cost more, depending on where you're trying to go. So researching job markets in different countries, I'll provide one of my favorite resources for that a little bit later. Determine if there is a demand for the skills that you have. So one of my favorite places to live, like logistics, is one of the biggest demands. Technology is another one of the largest demands in one of my favorite cities to live in. I don't have either of those skill sets. That is my husband, thankfully, so we can go there because of him. Thank you very much. I do love him very much. But that's not me. So you want to think about, what are the demands for skill sets in the different cities that you're considering as well. Also, cost of living, as I mentioned, housing prices, transportation costs. Are you biking? Are you busing? Are you taking public transport? Do you need a car? I remember with living in Zurich, my husband, he would jump on a bike. He would bike all day long. Of course, this was before we had children. Okay, let me just put that disclaimer out there. But he would bike all day long to go just live his best life around Zurich. And then when it got later in the day, he would jump on a train and train back home. That is not for me. I am not biking all day. I do not find that to be an enjoyable experience. Now, if I was on the water taxi to go someplace where I could maybe go to a park, watch a movie, go shopping, and then I'll meet you and we could take the train on back home together. That is possible, but that does not give me joy. In the words of Marie Kondo, I don't get joy from that. So it's about figuring out what is best for you of those things that you enjoy. Now, I enjoy going to the movie. So one of the cities that I lived in, I was able to get unlimited movie passes. That was like a game changer for me, child. We were in the movies all the time. We would have movie marathons. Okay, we finished this one. What we going to see next? It was great. So you want to think about the things that you enjoy. How much do those things cost in the countries where you're trying to move to? Healthcare expenses. I also have lived in places where I did not have health insurance for that specific country. So even when, like, for example, I hear a lot about Canada's health insurance, but that doesn't mean that you have access to Canada's health insurance just because you live in Canada. So I have lived in countries that have universal healthcare, that have awesome, amazing healthcare coverage that is like 20 euros a month or a year. And I did not have access to that. So I was paying 600 euro a month while everybody else I know was paying 20 euro a year. And receiving much better coverage than what I received for 600 euro because I worked for an American company. And so those are things that you also want to think about. Overall affordability of the country that you're in. A lot of other places like fresher foods are much less expensive than they are in the U.S. Whereas in the U.S., like fast food is much cheaper, and other countries, fast food is much more expensive, also because it's typically American food, the fast food. Culture, lifestyle. There are things about cultures that I have lived in abroad where I so appreciate, like work-life balance. I learned work-life balance when I lived abroad. I did not understand it truly until I left the United States. Now, there were other things like in terms of racial identity, where I was like, oh, bro, this is for the birds. This is silly. I do not understand this custom tradition, and I never will. And so I'm out. But there are certain things that you need to think about in terms of what is the culture, what is the lifestyle. Reflect on your personal preferences, again, for like climate, language. Are you willing to learn the language where you live? If you are not, don't go there. Go to a place where you are also willing to learn the language. I have a blog post on my website where I talk about the importance of learning language whichever country you're in. And this includes the UK. I mentioned in a previous episode about how I had to take the driving test, my German driving test that was written in British English. And I did not know what these people were asking of me on the road. And I had to do a lot of studying to learn British English before I could actually take my driving test. And so don't think just because they speak English in that country that it might be the same English that you speak. So you wanna definitely be thinking about that. Okay. Local customs and traditions, which you've already chatted about, activities, hobbies that you're interested. Do you like to play basketball? Do you like to paint? Do you like to go for walks? Do you like to bike? Do you like to hike? Are those things possible in the countries that you're going to? If you like to hike and then you move to the Dominican Republic and the climate is too hot for you, you will more than likely then be upset because it's too hot and upset because now you're not able to do the thing that you are most interested in doing. Safety and security is also significant to consider. Sorry to say, but if you've lived in the US, it's more than likely that you've already dealt with on a place that is less safe than many of the other places that you're considering moving to. And that also applies as a person from historically marginalized populations. Moving from that, a country's crime rate. I remember I was in shock when I found out that one of the places I moved to had like one homicide in the last 12 years. And it was a man who had murdered his wife for some reason. And I was like, I did not know that that was possible to have one homicide in a place in 12 years. Political stability. What is the political climate? We are going through a lot within the U.S. at this time. And so a lot of people are ready to leave the U.S. for that specific reason. I've had a lot of recent conversations about this. Now, let's move into some popular destinations I've been hearing. So as I mentioned, people are unhappy with many of the things that are happening in the United States at this moment. So I have had many conversations with people who are like, okay, I have been talking about this for a minute. It has been on my mind, heart, soul, and spirit for years. I have never wanted to make this real, but it's time. It's time to go. Some of the places I've been hearing about are Mexico. So like Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Puerto Vallarta. Those are some of the places that have come up more often. Specifically, the place I've had the most conversations about, have been Portugal. It's been the country that I've spoken to people about most, specifically Porto, and Lisbon. Lisbon now, I have never lived in Lisbon, but that is one of my favorite places. And I would definitely move there in 2 seconds. Like once I'm done with where I want to be, I would definitely consider Lisbon. Now, again, this is based on my personal preferences. So you want to think about what are your values? What are the things that are important to you? So for example, I know I am an African-American woman. And I know that there is a large African-American population within Porto and Lisbon. And so because of that, that is very important to me, especially moving to a place with children. And I want to know, like when I'm sending my child to school, where are other places that people have sent their children to school and they've been accepted based on their identities. If I want to send him to go to play on a basketball team, I want to know where are the other people sending their Black and brown children on this basketball team, because I need them to not have him arrive and think he's about to be LeBron, because my baby, I love him. He's very talented in many areas. Basketball is not yet one of them. So we need to manage expectations. So I like to know what other people have done that have been successful, especially with my children. Now, that's not something that would have necessarily been as important when I moved abroad without children. But now I'm in a different space, and my values and the things that I need in order to be able to live my best life abroad have changed. And that's okay. But it's just important to figure out what those things are for you. Okay. Colombia and Medellin in Colombia specifically, that's another place that I've had some conversations with people about. So this is in terms of like Americans who are moving abroad who want like not super humid climates. Although in Cancun, in Mexico, you really need to make sure that you're doing your research, because I do know people who have moved to Playa del Carmen, for example. Then they're like, I cannot. It's too hot. So you want to make sure that you are really doing your due diligence. And again, I do have resources on my website that can help you think through some of that. Now Spain is another one that's come up. I've told you all about my experiences in Spain, Madrid specifically. It's possible that you will have a different experience. So, Alicante is one of the places in Spain that has come up more often, in conversation. Also, Canada, of course, is very close to the US. So if finding a place where you can live abroad, that also is not too far, maybe from your home, country, your home state in the United States, Canada, Mexico, those can be great options for you. Also, Canada specifically typically provides a higher standard of living. You might be able to find better job opportunities because it is a neighbor to the U.S., specifically within the technology sector. Like I said, not within my area of skill sets. So that can be an option for you. European countries like Germany, where they have a higher U.S. military presence, is one that is often popular for Americans who are making the decision to move abroad. Germany has consistently had a robust economy within Europe, which is very important. Also, when I tell you, like I said, I learned work-life balance living in Germany. That was where I learned, oh, you don't have to work your life away. Wow. This is wonderful. And people who value family, again, that was where I learned that in Germany. I learned, wow, you can actually, I remember living in Germany and my neighbor had a baby. And I was like, oh, okay, awesome. Went to visit, see the baby, bring a gift. And then she was like, yeah, so I'm going to be taking the next 2 years off. And then my husband will take the third year off. And I was like, I'm sorry, come again. Can you please explain this? So at that time, you can take 3 years off, for parental leave in Germany. Your employer had to keep your position, not necessarily the exact position, but the same level of position within the organization. She was a teacher. And you can split those 3 years between both partners. So she was going to take the first 2 years off for parental leave to raise their child. And her husband was going to take that third year off to raise their child. So it was a total of 3 years of parental leave that was split between the parents. I had never heard of such a thing. And I wish I could have had my son in Germany because that is amazing. But yes, those are the types of things that you may be able to have in other countries that I don't know any place in the US doing that. If so, please share. But I don't know it. I'm not saying I know everything, but I don't know that. That's what I don't know. Southeast Asia is also another popular region. So like Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, is another area that's been really attractive because of low cost of living. Also, I have, had conversations with people who are like, I moved there with all of these different identities that I possess, and I was completely welcomed within the local community. And so that is huge for me anyway. I love to be able to immerse myself in the culture where I am. That's one of the reasons why I love languages so much. So I speak English, Spanish, German, Dutch. I plan to learn French very soon. I used to speak Portuguese, but I need to do better, because I haven't spoken Portuguese since I went to Brazil, which was 2003, maybe. So it's been a while, but I love languages. And one of the reasons why I love languages is because of that ability to truly immerse yourself within the local community. And so I highly recommend it. But yeah, so that's one of the benefits that I've heard of from Southeast Asia as well. Now, again, I will reiterate that making that decision really depends on your personal preferences and your priorities. Okay. So, there are different resources and websites and all the things all over the internet to help you get information on, these different aspects of your move abroad. If you go to my website, www.yourbestlifeabroad.com, I also have information for you. I tried to pull the information that I find most helpful, and condense that into different resources. So I have a checklist for you, move abroad checklist. I have blog posts around different topics, a guide that provides insights on various aspects of moving abroad. So if you are interested in specific areas of moving abroad, check out my website. I also have, if you want the information, the resources that I use to share this information, you can get that from my website as well, like weather, cost of living calculators and comparisons. So I do recommend you checking out my website. Again, www.yourbestlifeabroad.com, and just beginning to dig through those resources to narrow down your choices. One of my favorite websites, which I did share before that I would mention. So one of my favorite websites for identifying job opportunities abroad and also having different country guides is called Goin Global, GOIN global.com. So you can search for employment in different countries abroad. And it just has a lot of practical information on that website. Another helpful platform is Numbeo, Numbeo.com. So this is my favorite site for cost of living comparisons between countries. And it really just allows you to estimate your expenses in different locations, which is extremely important. As I mentioned, you do not want to move abroad broke. You want to have a plan for your time abroad. Also, the U.S. Department of State's website is really a great resource for getting up-to-date travel advisories, safety information, visa requirements. And then there are different social media platforms like Facebook. I love a good Facebook expat group. You get all the tea and all the information in the Facebook group, and you can ask whatever questions that you have. Hey, so I'm trying to do this in this country. Is that possible? You can ask those questions before you go. So then you can get advice and build your community, build your network before you even step foot in country. So just remember that selecting your country is a personal decision. It is important for you to take your time. It is important for you to do thorough research. You want to consider your goals. You want to consider your values. You want to consider your priorities. What matters most to you? I also want my guides to have a list of questions for you to ask yourself before making the decision of the country that you want to move to abroad. But exploring different factors that we talked about today and utilizing different resources will help you to just feel confident and well equipped that you are making an informed decision and just live the best life that you possibly can while you're abroad. So that's it. That's all for today. And this good Best Life Abroad, Not Your Average Travel Podcast episode. I really hope that you found this information to be helpful. We will talk next time and just dig a little bit further, take the next step as to what you need to be doing now that you found your country. So in the next 2 weeks, really do some work to figure out which country you want to be in. So then you'll be ready in our next episode when we take our next steps to make sure that you're ready for living your best life abroad. If you are interested in moving abroad, if you need some help taking that leap, I am again here to support you on your personal journey. I know that every journey is different. Every person has their own specific set of questions that they need answered, their own specific things that they are looking for in their move abroad. And I am here to help you on that journey. Head to my website, www.yourbestlifeabroad.com, for information on how to turn your dream of moving abroad into a reality. We have lots of things happening in the world right now, and moving abroad may be just what you need in order to be able to reset, to refresh, to feel safe, and to live the life that you want to live. So thanks again for joining me today. And again, there is no time like the present to live your best life abroad. See you next time.